Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Hamid Adamu and today we are building a complete one-page website using only Flexbox. So this is going to be an exciting project-based lesson. This video is specifically made for you to understand how Flexbox works in real projects, not just isolated examples. So we are going to build a professional website with a hero section, about, services and contacts, all using Flexbox for the layouts. I really encourage you to code along with me. Don't just watch. Open VS Code and build this project step by step. That's the best way to truly understand how Flexbox works in practice. By the end of this video, you will have a complete responsive website that you can use as inspiration for your own projects or even add to your portfolio. So without wasting much time, let's dive in and start building. Okay. So as you can see here in my laptop, I have VS Code opened and Chrome browser and the live server extension, which allows me to see changes, whatever changes I made in my VS Code right away. Okay, so first let's create our HTML code. Okay, so for this project I have these images here, right here. So I want to use these two images, and I will send the images to the class group actually. Okay, so don't worry about that, I will send it to you guys. So let's start with navigation menu. Okay, so and you can name this whatever you want, and I'm naming my site Visa Solutions. Okay, I kind of like the name. I'm using it as my identity too. Okay, so let's create the links. Okay, let's duplicate this and change this to about, services, and then finally contact. Okay, so this our navbar, right? Let me add some comment here. Okay, so let's create a markup of our hero too. Actually, I want to write all the HTML first before starting CSS, the styling. Okay, it's not necessary, but I just want to do it like this for this video. Okay, so let's see section id hero, and let's give it a class too, class of hero. Okay, you'll know why when you start adding styles. Okay, let's say hero content, right? Okay, building amazing websites So learn modern web development. And create professional layouts that work everywhere. Okay, so let's add a call to action button here. Okay, yeah, so I think this is all for our hero section, right? Let me add the markup for the about section. Okay, as usual, about let's create a container here, a container div. Inside of that, let's say about our approach, right? About our approach. So let's create another div here with the class of about content. So inside of the about content, let's say about text. Let's add some paragraph inside. So we believe in teaching practical skills. Practical skills that you can use immediately. Our approach focuses on real projects and hands-on learning. Okay, let me add another paragraph. So every lesson is designed to build your confidence and help you create professional websites. Okay, I think that's pretty much for the about text. Now let me add the about image. Okay, let's see. After the closing in the about text, let's create another div with the class of about image, and inside of it, let's say about placeholder. This will all make sense once we start our CSS. Okay, so this will all make sense once we start our CSS. So for now, just code along with me. Right. So the image I'm gonna use is right here. So I was trying to guess the location without, so image, okay, there you go. So far so good. Our website is starting to look in now, even without CSS. Right, let me format the document. Yeah, so let's create the markup for the services section. Okay, let's say section ID services and class of services too. ID services and class of services too. Right, so just as like we have built the about section, this one too, we're gonna create a container. Right, container, and inside of that, let's create our heading, our services. Right, so let's say service cards. Okay, let me expand it for us to see. So learn to build responsive websites using modern HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so this is the first card. This is the first card, right? Also, let me just duplicate this one. So we have 3 cards right now. Okay, so I'm just gonna change the content. So for the second card, let's say, so for the second card, it's UI and UX design. You know what that means, right? So UI and UX design. And our paragraph should be master the principles of user interface and user interface and user experience design. Okay, so this is our second card right here, and our third card should be responsive web design. Okay, Now let's change the content of the paragraph to say what am I gonna say for here? Say create websites that look perfect on all devices and screen sizes. Okay, so I think we are done with the markup of the services too, right? So let me go down as usual and give it some space. Okay, now let's add the markup for the contact section. Section ID, contact, and class to contact, right? So inside of it, create a container and then our heading title, say get in touch, and then create a div with the class of contact content. Right, so inside of it, let's create this div with the class of contact info. So, and the heading should be contact information. Okay, and let's add some paragraph. Ready to start learning, get in touch. Get in touch. Okay, right, let's create another div with the class of contact details. Right, so the first one should be the company's email. So let's say okay, and for the content, let's say contact at visasolutions.com. Okay, so this is our link below, right? So let's add a phone number link too. Right, so let's say that's too much. Let's say 234. Actually, let me just write my number. Okay, okay, can you see that? So this is my number here, right? So the next thing is the location, right? And for the location, let's say Lagos, Nigeria. I'm not from Lagos, but this is just an example, right? So yeah, after this, let's add the contact form. So form action should just be dead link, right? Actually, we don't need the action attribute. We're not submitting it to anywhere. Okay, let's add the form elements. Actually, since our HTML class, I've never shown you how to style input elements, right? I think I've never done that before, but in this video I'm gonna do it. Your email, and then text area, so let me just give it a cost of 5, and rows 5 too, maybe. This is just a demonstration. Okay, as you can see now, you can resize it to wherever you want, but we will change that in our CSS. Okay, so let me give it a placeholder too. So type your message. Okay, can you see that? Type your message. Let's say 50 calls actually. Okay, that's good. So let's add a submit button, even though we ain't submitting the form to anywhere. So button type submit, and let's say send message. Right? Okay, that's all for the HTML. Now let me explain it again. So I'm creating semantic sections for each part of our website. The navigation has a brand name and a list of links. So this one here, the brand name is Visa Solutions, right? And then this list of links. Notice I'm using anchor links with the hash symbol. This will smoothly scroll to different sections of our page. Let me add the place where I want them to scroll to. So this one should scroll to the about, and this one to the services, and this one the contact. See the advantage of having the number one advantage of having the class, both class and ID on a section, right? So right now I can use it as a link, or also if I come to select it with JavaScript, so document.getElement by ID, I'm just gonna use it. There is get element by class name too, but it's not used a lot. But nowadays even get element by ID is not used. currently everybody use query selector in JavaScript, but we ain't gonna move into that, not yet. Okay, so the hero section contains our main heading, a description, and a call to action button. This is typically the first thing visitors see when they land on this website. And our bust section, it has a 2-column layout with text on side and a placeholder for an image on the other side. We will use Flexbox to arrange this side by side. And for the services below, I'm creating 3 cards that will be arranged horizontally using Flexbox. Each card has a heading and description. The contact section combines contact information with a contact form, again arranged side by side using Flexbox, as you can see. So this is the contact info, and then we have our contact form here, right? We are going to align them side by side. Okay, that's pretty much for HTML. Now let's start with our CSS. Okay, so when writing CSS, I always start by adding the basic reset and typography setup, right? So I reset the margin and padding and set the box sizing to border box, and this is actually simple. You just need the universal selector for that. Okay, let me write it here. Say CSS reset and base styles. Okay, so let's say font family, I'm going to use Poppins for this project. Okay, I'm also using the line height. Let me set the line height to 1.6 and the color of gray. Now the container, let's add some basic styling for the container, right? So I want my containers to have a max width of 1200 pixels, so 1200 pixels, right? And also it should have a margin of 0 top and bottom, auto left and right, and I want it to have a padding of 0 top and bottom, 20 pixels left and right. Okay, so as you can see, I started with the universal selector that removes all default margins and paddings from every element. The box sizing border box property makes width and height calculations much more predictable by including padding and borders in the total width, right? And for the body, I have set a clean font family with Poppins as the primary choice. The line height of 1.6 makes the text more readable by adding proper spacing between lines. I'm using a dark gray color instead of pure black because it's easier on the eyes, right? So the container class is a utility class that I'll use throughout the website. It sets a maximum width of 1200 pixels. It centers the content with margin auto and adds padding on the sides so content doesn't touch the edges on smaller screens. So where do we have all these container classes? So the first one is in our about, and then the services, right, and then contact. So in both the 3 sections we have the container utility class. Okay, so now let's create our navigation by using. Okay guys, now let's start our navigation here. So let's say navigation styles. Styles. Okay, so first we're going to select our nav with the class of navbar, right, and display it to flex. Justify content. Let's justify content space between. Align items center, right? So let's see how they are now. So I gave it justify content of space between, right, and they should all be in the center. Okay, now let's add some padding. Say padding 1 rem top and bottom, 2 rem left and right. Okay, let me give it some background color. So a white background color actually. Let me give it some box shadow, right, 2 pixels, 10 pixels, and then this color, so this RGB color. Okay, let's see the box shadow effect below the nav element. Okay, now let me position, let me make it to be a fixed nav bar, right? Position fixed, top 0, left 0, and right 0. Okay, so that solves it. And for the stacking context, let's give it a higher stacking order. So let's give it 1000. So right now it's above each and every element on our page, right? It's above all the elements. It's the highest in the stacking order. Okay, so what happened here is I used the display flex to turn the navbar into a flex container. This means all direct children, in this case the brand name and the navigation links, will become flex items. like you saw there, right? So right now the flex items are this one here and the links here. The justify content space between property is doing something really powerful here. Pushes the first item, as you can see, our brand, to the far left, and the last item to the far right, with maximum space between them. And then align items centers both items vertically within the navbar, which gives us perfectly aligned navigation regardless of the height differences between elements. So I'm adding padding for breathing room, a white background, and a subtle box shadow for depth. The position fixed makes the navigation stick to the top of the page as users scroll, and z-index 1000 ensures it appears above other contents. Right, now let me style the brand and navigation links. What I mean by the brand is the logo. Actually, I named it logo, right? So let's give it a font size of 1.5 rem. Okay, let's give it a font weight of bold, and the color hash 0007 pff, so some kind of a blue color, right? Now let's select the nav links here. this one right here, I didn't give it the class. So class of nav links, right? So for the nav links, display them to flex. Can you see the effect? Right now you know how much powerful Flexbox can be, right? Let's remove the bullet points by setting our list style to none, and then let's give it some gap of 2 rem, and then let's style our links. So when the user hovers the links, actually I don't want to be writing the color code like this anyway, so why not just have custom CSS variables here. So let me write it after the universal select, after the resets. So in our root element, let's say blue, and give it this color. Okay, and then gray. I've never shown you the custom variables, but this is how they works. Okay, if you have any experience in other languages, in other programming languages, so what those variables do here is that they store the color code, right? So if we come here, let's say let me replace all the places with that. So what you need to do is just call it var blue, right? Same thing with this one, blue. And actually let me take the grays too. Okay, okay, there we go. So as you can see, our hover is working perfectly, right? This is how our website looks right now in full width. Okay, can you see how our navbar looks? It's pretty cool, right? So for the brand, as you can see, I make it larger and bolder with a blue color to make it stand out. And the navigation links, this is where Flexbox really shines again. Like I told you, I use the display flex, as you can see, on the UI elements, which arranges the list items horizontally instead of vertically, and the gap of 2 rem property adds consistent spacing between each navigation item. This is much cleaner than using margins. I'm removing the default list styling, adding smooth transitions and creating a nice hover effect that changes the color to blue when the user hover over the links. So I think that's all for our navigation bar for now. Let's move to the hero section. Okay, so select the .hero class, right? Display it to flex and justify content center. Okay, align items center. Let's give it a minimum height of 100 viewport height. Can you see that? So right now the minimum height of our hero is 100 viewport, right? So it covers the whole viewport for now. And after that, let's give it a background color. Let's add some gradient background here. I didn't show you all of this. Actually, it's too much. CSS, it has many things. As you can see, I didn't even show you transforms, but I'm really looking forward to showing you transforms. Okay, before we move to this animations and transitions lecture, we are going to do the transforms first. Okay, so we are going to deep dive into it later. For now, let's focus on Flexbox. Okay, so let's say, let me give you some color code. And see what's happening here. And then let's say 764 BA2, right? 100%. Don't worry, I'm going to explain it. And the color, and let's give it a margin top of, let's say 70 pixels. Okay, so this is a perfect example of Flexbox centering. So I use the display flex to make the hero section a flex container first, then justify the content to center, which centers the content horizontally, and align item centers it vertically, as you can see. So it's now at the center of our page. No matter what happens, no matter how smaller the screen size, it will always be in the center of our viewport screen, right? So the mean height 100 VH makes the hero section takes up the full viewport height. The VH unit means viewport height, so 100 VH equals 100% of the browser window height. I'm using a beautiful gradient background that goes from a light purple, as you can see, from a light purple to a darker purple at 135 degrees. The margin top accounts for our fixed navigation bar, so content doesn't hide behind it, right? So the margin top that I give here, the margin top of 70 pixels. And you might know why when we come to reviewing it on smaller screens. Okay, now let me style the hero content. So let's select the first item, which is h1, and give it a font size of 3.5 rem, right? Give it a margin bottom of 1 rem and font weight of 700, right? Or you can even say you'll just say bold if you like. Okay, let's leave it like that. And then for the paragraph, let's give it a font size of 1.2 rem, margin bottom of 2 rem, and let's give it a max width of 600 pixels. And let's give it a margin left of auto and margin right auto. Okay, let's add some opacity, opacity of 0.9. Okay, so this is how our page looks on the full screen. Actually, let me edit, let me style the button. So the call to action button, our CTA. So it has a class of CTA, right? Hero content CTA. Let's give it some background. So some light coral background and the color white color, no borders, and padding of 15 pixels top and bottom, 30 pixels left and right. Okay, let's give it a font size of 1.1 rem. Notice how I've been using rem units throughout. So I'm doing it for consistency, okay, and responsiveness, because it adapts to the size, right? So let's give it a border radius of 50 pixels to make it round. Okay. Let's give it a cursor pointer, as you can see. Okay, and also let's give it some transition, because we might, if a user hovers it, we need some transition to happen. Okay, so if a user hovers it, someone hovers the button, the background should change to this color. Okay, and also transform, it should move up a little bit. Like I told you, we didn't do anything about transforms, but believe me, I'm going to create a special lesson for that. So let's add some box shadow, 0.5 pixel, 15, and then some RGB color. Okay, can you see the effect? It's really cool, right? So let me explain what happened. So I make the header large and bold to grab attention for the paragraph. So from the first thing the user sees when he visits this website is building amazing websites, right? It is the first thing that will catch his attention. So, and also I limited the paragraph. I limited its width and centering with auto margins for better readability, because long lines of text are hard to read, right? And do you know why is that? So as you can see, this looks perfect, right? Now if I am to remove the max width and these margins, can you see what happens? So it stretches to the far ends of our container, right? And I don't like that. Okay, so, and our call to action button, right? The sheet here, it uses a bright coral color that contrasts well with the purple background. I'm adding a hover effect that changes the color slightly, lifts the button up by 2 pixels using the transform translate, right? And adds a shadow for a nice interactive feel. So that's all for our hero section. Now let's move to the about. Okay, about section. So let's select about section dot about. So let's give it a padding of 80 pixels top and bottom, and then 0 left and right. Let's give it some background color. Okay, F8, F9, FA. Yeah, so let's style the contents. So H2, the header, so it should be in this middle, sorry, right? So there should be space between the title and the content. Let's give it a font size of 2.5 rem, so it stands out, and the color should be our old friend, gray. Okay, now we don't need to type in the color code. Okay, can you see how it looks right now? So as you can see, there is some spacing between the header and the remaining content, right? So now let's grab about our about content div and display it to flex. Okay, can you see the power of Flexbox again? You see, just by saying display flex, they are now positioned side by side. Align items, center and gap of 4 Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? So the align item centers everything, no matter whether their height it's the same or not, they will all be in the middle, right? So I've added generous paddings to give the section breathing room, and using a light gray background to distinguish it from other sections, right? So the light gray background I'm using here for the about. So the heading is centered and larger to establish hierarchy. The about content div is where Flexbox creates our two-column layout, as you can see, by using the display flex. The two child elements, the text content and the image, automatically arranged side by side, right? And the align item center vertically centers both columns, so even if one column is taller than the other, they will be perfectly aligned. And the gap of foreign adds space between the columns without using margins. Okay, now let's continue styling our about section. This time select the about text. Okay, give it a flex basis of 1. You will now see the power of flex basis. Okay, and about text p, so the paragraph. Notice how I've been using 1.1 rem for paragraph, for the paragraphs font sizes and the buttons too. So on our call to action button, we used this same font size too, right? And let's give it some margin button of 1.5 rem, and this one should be line height 1.7. Okay, let's give it a color of some gray color actually. Let's select our about image and give it a flex basis of 1. Okay, so we also have this div called placeholder image, right? So this is the one that contains our image. So let's give it a background color. Let's give it some background color. Okay, let's give it a height of 300 pixels. Okay, it doesn't appear. Let me check the class very well. So it's about placeholder actually, not placeholder image. Okay, about placeholder, right? Yeah, very good. So right now it didn't appear much, but let me try changing the color to red. It still did not appear. Actually, let me give it some styles. Okay, let me display the image to, let me display it to flex, right? Display flex, align items center, justify content. Okay, actually I don't need this. Okay, it's a crazy mistake actually. I don't need the placeholder for the image, right? Let's say I need some kind of a curved background or something like that. I will have used it, but no, I just want to display the image there, right? Okay, so here is where our flex becomes handy. This is where our flex one becomes really powerful. By giving both the text and image containers flex one, I'm telling them to take up equal amounts of the available space. This creates a 50-50 split regardless of the content inside, right? So let's move to services. Okay, as you can see, our about is perfect for now. All right, let's move to the services section. Okay, so services section. Okay, so the service section will showcase 3 cards in a row, which is another perfect use case for Flexbox, right? Like I told you, we are going to use Flexbox mostly for the whole layouts of this web page, right? So let's select the services class and give it a padding of 80 pixels and a background of pure white. So for our header here, same styles with the one above. Center, margin bottom of 3 rem, font size of 2.5 rem, and the color of gray, right? So actually, let me check the classes we used. So the container is service cards, right? Let's say service cards display flex, and let's give it a gap of 2 rem. Okay, can you see that? Now you can feel how powerful Flexbox is. I followed the same pattern with generous padding and a centered heading. So this one here, right? And the service cards uses Flexbox to arrange the 3 service cards horizontally with consistent spacing between them, right? So let's style the contents, the cards actually. So let's say service card. Let's give it a flex basis of 1, background color of white, padding of 2 rem for spacing inside of it, border radius of 10 pixels. Let's give it some box shadow. Okay, so this color here, right? Text align, center, transition, transform. Okay, now when a user hovers over our service card, you want it to be, let's say, move up a little bit, right? Like the one we did with the call to action button there. Now let's check it out and see. Okay, it works perfectly, right? Yeah, pretty good. And you can see the box shadow too, how cool it is, right? Now let's continue adding styles. Let's give it a margin bottom of 1 rem, color of our old friend blue, and font size of 1.5 rem. Okay, let's see the changes. Okay, so now the headings of each card is blue in color, right? Now let's style the paragraph too. Let me give it a color of this one here, this gray color, sorry, not color gold. Just when you think you know it all and some property will just pop up like this in CSS. Line height 1.6. Okay, so again I'm using flex basis of 1 on each service card to make them equal width. This is one of the most powerful features of Flexbox, like I told you. Equal width columns without complicated calculations. This card has a white background with a subtle shadow for depth. The hover effect lifts the card slightly, creating an interactive feel that guides users' attention. The heading inside each card uses the same blue color as our brand for consistency, right? And the text is a softer gray for good readability hierarchy. So I think that's all for the services. Now let's move into the contacts. As you can see, this is not looking good, right? You can also fix the responsiveness problem using Flexbox still. We don't need any media queries for it. We don't need any JavaScript or something like that. So we are going to use a media query. So for a breakpoint, right? But for now, let me style the content. So our contact section here combines contact information with a form within a 2-column layout, similar to the about section, right? Actually, let me style it. Contact section. It's good to comment out your code like this. So right now, if to say I send this code to you, as there are some of you are requesting for the code. So if I send this code to you, once you came like this, these stars are for services and these are for about, and just like that. Okay, so select the contact element Again, give it a padding of 80 pixels and 0. Give it that same background. Actually, let me just go and copy it. The background I gave my this one here. Okay, so let me give it a color of white. Right, so I gave it a color of white. Okay, now let's style the heading. As usual, the text should be centered. Now let's select our contact content. Okay, so this one right here. So this class. Okay, so let's make it a flex container with a gap of 4 rem. Align items, this time not center, flex start. Okay guys, so I've used the same gradient background as the hero section to create visual consistency, and the contact content uses Flexbox for the 2-column layout. But notice I'm using align items flex start instead of center. This is because I want both columns to start at the top, not center vertically. Okay, now let's style the contact info. Right, so contact info, let's give it a flex basis of 1. Okay, so contact info again, the h3, so the subheading inside of it, let's give it a margin bottom of 1 rem. Let's give it a font size of 1.8 rem. Okay, and the paragraph, let's give it a margin bottom of 2 rem actually. Font size of 1.1, sorry, 1.1 rem, right? And let's give it an opacity of 0.9. And so the contact details, let's select the paragraph. Let's select its paragraph actually. Let me give it a margin bottom of 0.5 rem and font size of 1 rem units. Okay, so the contact information takes up 1 column with flex 1. I'm styling the headings and text with appropriate sizes and using opacity to make the text slightly softer against the gradient background. Okay, actually let me show it to you in the browser. Can you see it? This is how our contact looks right now. Okay, let's continue the style. Let's style the form. So contact form, and let's give the flex basis of 1 2. So let's select the form itself, and let's use the Flexbox again. You can see how powerful Flexbox is. With just Flexbox, we have built this whole thing, right? Display flex, and we don't want the inputs fields to be in a row, right? So let's say flex direction column, and let's give it a gap of 1 rem. Okay, now let's grab the inputs and the text area. Right, so let's give it a padding of 12 pixels top and bottom, 15 pixels left and right. Let's remove the borders. I'm going to remove the outline too. Okay, let's give it some border radius, and the font size should be 1 rem. So 1 rem units. Let's give it some background here. So 255, 0.9. Okay, sorry, it's actually 3, right? And then 0.9. Yeah, so let's select the contact form and then button. So send message button, let's give it a background of background color of, so this color here is light coral. Let's give it a, let's make its text white and remove the border and the padding for 15 pixels, cursor pointer, right? Font size of 1.1 rem, and let's add some transition for the background. Okay, so right now if someone hovers over the button, you want the background to change into this coral, right? So let's view it and see. Okay, let's see how great it looks now. So here's another great use of Flexbox. I've used flex direction column on the form to stack the form elements vertically. Right. So as you can see our contact page, right? I use the gap of one rem to add consistent spacing between all form fields. As you can see here, look how they turned out. Very beautiful, right? And our button here, it has this hover effect. The form inputs use a semi-transparent white background that looks great against the gradient, right? I hope you noticed that. And the submit button matches our call to action button from the hero section for consistency. So the color and the style for the hover, right? Let me add. I think we are almost done. Now what we need to do is to make this site responsive. Okay, so we need to make it responsive, right? Responsive design. Actually, before that, let me add a footer element here. All rights reserved, and copy Visa Solutions 2025, right? So here is it below. Okay, now let's grab our footer and give it a padding of 2 rem, background of, let's say, this color, and the text should be in the middle, and the font size should be 1 rem. Okay, yeah, I think it's pretty good, right? So now let's make our website responsive. As you can see now, if I decrease the width of the thing, the site doesn't look good at all. It's only our hero section that is now responsive, right? Let me show you with my Chrome extension tool how it looks on mobile phones. Okay, can you see that? Can you see how? So as you can see, the hero section looks great even on mobiles, right? But look at how our layout break here. It's not stacking, right? Everything's working perfectly except for the responsiveness. So let's try and change that. Okay, let's make our website responsive. So Flexbox makes responsive design much easier, but we still need some media queries for smaller screens, right? So let's add this media query here. Say so max width of 768 pixels. Now what this does is that it tells the browser, so if the max width of the device or the browser view width is less than or equal to 768 pixels, then do this. So the styles inside it should be executed, else they cannot be used, right? So it's like in JavaScript, like saying if, let's say, h equals 18, right? So if h is greater than or equal to 18, let's say console.log adult. No, sorry, you can enter, right? Else console.log you are too young and not allowed. Okay, that's pretty bad, writing JavaScript code inside of CSS. I just want to show you the logic behind the media queries, right? It's just like saying if the device width is this, do this. Simple, right? So the first thing we need to do is reduce our hero content, our heading here inside of our hero content, right? It's now by default we set it 3.5 rem, so when the device is smaller it should be 2.5, right? And also let's select the about content and give it a flex direction column. So if the browser viewport with you reach 768 pixels, then you can see they will all start to stack top of each other, right? Okay, can you see that? They now actually start. So before, this is how it looked, right? Pretty bad. But for now, yeah, they break. And we also need the about text. Okay, so I need to say text. Okay, I need to center the text actually, right? So the next thing is the services, right? Can you see how bad they look? So they shrink. Let's say service grid, sorry, service cards and flex direction column. Okay, wow, it's beautiful, right? So they are now stacked on top of each other, right? And also for the contact content, so the contact section, right? Also it should now be column, so it should flow vertically, right, instead of horizontally, and with a gap of 2 rem. Okay, and our navbar here, we need to select our navbar and decrease the padding, but we gave it a padding of 2 rem, right? So we need to reduce it. We gave it a padding of 1 rem top and bottom, 2 rem left and right. Now let's decrease it to just 1 rem for all the sides. Okay, so okay, and for the nav links, let's give it a gap of 1 rem. Okay, so we also need to break this one too, because right now it looks shrink or something like that, right? Let's break this one too. Okay, there we go. uh, I'm not gonna show you how, like, having a hamburger menu here, that if the screen size is this, then all the links should disappear and there should be a hamburger menu by the right side and your logo by the left side. So when you click on the hamburger menu, then the links should open, right? But for now we are just practicing CSS. We are not yet into JavaScript, right? One step at a time. But we'll come to that if you keep consistency. That is all I ask from you. Be consistent, practice. Now like this, if you have followed along and caught this with me, then you need to start your own, okay, and build it differently using the concepts you have learned here, using the methods you have learned here. You use it but on a different project of yours, right? So on a personal project. So that is how we learn and improve. We learn by doing. We learn the best by doing, actually. Okay, so our container, let's give it a padding of 0 and then 15 pixels. Okay, this is where Flexbox really shines, as you can see, for responsive design. Instead of completely rewriting our layouts, I can simply change the flex direction from row, which is the default, to column on smaller screens. That's all we have done, right? For the about content, services cards and content, changing to flex direction column automatically stacks the elements vertically instead of horizontally. The Flexbox properties like gap still work perfectly, just in the new direction. Like I see, I've also reduced the font sizes, gaps and paddings to fit better on smaller screens. The navigation links gets closer together and the overall container gets less padding, right? So let's add some final touches to make the website feel more polished. So let's add some CSS in our root element here. So right now, if you click on a link like this, you see it just jump into that section, right? And it's good, but we can change that. We will make it better. So let's use the scroll behavior and set it to smooth. That's all. Okay, now it's better, right? So it's working perfectly. And also I need to add for the sections. Let's select the section and add scroll margin top of 80 pixels, right? And also additional hover effects. So on the service card, if a user hovers on the service card, right? Actually, let me go and write it there, guy. Okay, instead of just this transform, we need this box shadow around it. Okay, so the box shadow we need is 0, 10 pixels, 30 pixels, and then some RGB color. Okay, so the scroll behavior, as you can see, properly creates smooth scrolling when user clicks on the navigation links. The scroll margin top that I added for the sections accounts for our fixed navigation, so sections don't hide behind it when scrolled through. An example is this. Can you see? It's not hiding. There is a spacing between the heading and the section, right? Yeah, that's pretty good. I also enhanced the hover effects and adding focus styles for better accessibility, right? These details makes the website feel more professional and user friendly. Okay. Oops, I forgot our contact here. Actually, let me center this text. Okay, so let's go into our breakpoint, and inside the contact content, right, so text align center. Oops, it didn't work. Actually, it's inside here. So contact info, right? I think that might work now. It still didn't work. I don't know why. Let's see contact details. Oops, what's the problem here? I don't know why it's still not working, but actually let me see its width. Okay, I now discovered where the problem is. So the width is limited, right? Let's give it a width of 100%. There we go. And also let's select the contact details. Okay, and also we need to center the form. Right, we need to center the form too, right? So let's go there and see. Yeah, they are now all centered, right? I always use this border of 1 pixel solid thread to check on what I'm doing, to check on the width of the element I'm working on, if there is any issue like that. Okay, now everything looks pretty, right? Now we can check our website on the mobile responsiveness and see how it looked again. Okay, now let's use the links to scroll. So our about is working perfectly, and the services, they are all working perfectly, and the contacts, yeah, they all feel great, right? And there we have it. We have built a complete responsive one-page website using primarily Flexbox for all our layouts. Let me recap the key Flexbox concepts we used. First, we used the justify content space between for our navigation to push elements to opposite ends. We used perfect centering with justify content center and align item center for our hero section. We created equal width columns using flex basis of 1 in multiple sections. We used gap property throughout for consistent spacing without margin complications. We made our layouts responsive by changing from row to column on smaller screens. Right. and we nested Flexbox layouts inside other Flexbox layouts for complex designs. The beautiful thing about Flexbox is how it makes complex layouts simple and intuitive. What used to require flawed positioning hacks and complicated calculations now works with just a few Flexbox properties. I encourage you to take this code and experiment with it. Try changing the justify content values, experiment with different flex pressures, add more sections or modify the colors and styling. Or you can even start your own project based on what you have learned here so far, right? So that will be your assignment actually. So you take this one and improve it. I'm going to send you the pictures, okay? The more you practice with real projects like this, the more natural Flexbox becomes. And remember, this same approach works for any layout you want to create: navigation bars, card grids, sidebars, footers, everything. If you found this helpful, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more web development tutorials. And if you have any questions about Flexbox or want to see more project-based tutorials, let me know in the comments. And if you have faced any difficulty, ask whether in the comment section or in our front-end masterclass group. Okay, thanks for coding along with me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.